but they're pulling the product out of an abundance of caution.
Wall Street is in the green at this hour. The Dow up 29 points, NASDAQ up 52. This is CBS News.
When you think of hiring, think of Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring system helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Civic Media radio stations, providing your news, conversations, and fun you won't find anywhere else.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Scaffolding is keeping a Milwaukee apartment building from collapsing, so city government has forced everyone out. The Department of Neighborhood Services has evacuated all 16 units of the Sohai Lofts at 27th and Wells due to serious structural concerns. Over a dozen residents have been displaced. There are problems with exterior walkways, rusty scaffolding, falling stairs, and a non-functioning elevator. The big gig grounds are set to host some little gigs. Starting today, a family and pet-friendly temporary beer garden is scheduled to open at Milwaukee's Summerfest grounds. The garden will be located in the Northwestern Mutual Community Park and will be operational on select Fridays and Saturdays in September. There will be free parking, live acoustic music, and a diverse menu of beer and snacks. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Experience Nightlight, September 8th and 9th from 5 until 10:30 p.m. Presented by Joy Engine. The dazzling spectacle is an immersive 4D light festival taking place in Milwaukee's historic Mitchell Street neighborhood. Digital animations, dance, music, art, and fashion combine to create a visual, family-friendly sensory experience outside of 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. The event is family-friendly and free to the public. Don't miss this iconic event. Nightlight, where art comes to life. Information at joyengine.org. The Todd Alba Show.
I see the silhouette of Todd Alba, who still hasn't figured out that maybe a TV person could help, set this whole thing up.
For whatever reason, StreamYard's video is just deciding that the room is too bright.
When has Todd Alba been accused of being too bright? I mean, really there. I'm like, where's Aaron with the rim shot?
The Todd Alba Show. Weekday afternoons from 1 till 3 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy.
Is that word?
Innovative.
Innovative?
Whatever. You can say it both ways.
I think it's it indicates.
Indicative? Is that the word you're looking for?
That is a good word, Kristen Bry.
A friend wouldn't make fun of somebody for knowing a word. See, this is what I'm talking about, people. Kristen Bry does not believe in friendship.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin! Hello, Wisconsin! Happy Friday! It is November 8th, 2023. I am in, not November, it's September 8th. This is how this day has already started. We're very excited about this. I am in Madison. I am from our Civic Media headquarters for the first time since we've moved locations. Greg Bach is on the board in Waukesha. Greg Bach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It looks so wonderful there.
It's very new.
It's cozy.
It's like there's lots of technology. I have like TV screens in front of me so I can see the people who are calling. I can see the text line. I have my notes in front of me. Like it's a step up. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit of a step up. I'm feeling a little like the stepchild in Waukesha that this is much nicer digs than what we get every day.
I'm just going to put, if there's someone there at Civic Media listening while I ask this question to just Kristen, hey, when's this going to happen here?
I know. I mean, this is nice. This is real nice. We would like this.
I'll move to Madison.
But yes, I am in Madison, my hometown. Very happy to be here. Always nostalgic every time I drive into town. I was in town last night because my mom had a baby shower for me with her best friends who were all like aunts to me growing up.
Debbie Bry.
It was very fun last night to see all of them and sleep, not at the house I grew up at, but 2 houses down. And so that's where I slept over last night. So it was like looking at the house I grew up in. And I was like, oh, they changed that. Like, that's weird.
Oh, that is very odd when that happens. Yes, I don't agree. Yeah.
But very happy to be in Madison. Very happy to have our show today. Luke Mathers is going to be here at 10:30 for our crossover Civic Media Friday. I always flip those two. Civic Media Crossover Fridays, where he's going to tell us his best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the week. And then you two will go head to head in our headline quiz. I got some good Wisconsin questions today, so I'm excited to see which of you two have been paying closer attention to the news this week. And then in the second hour, I'm really excited. We have lots of guests in the second hour. So first, we have Professor Schaefer, who is like an AI guru. So Professor David Williamson Schaefer is a data philosopher. He's a quantitative ethnographer. He's a Sears Bascom professor of learning analytics. So he's very, very smart. But I specifically reached out to him because the school year's back. And what are professors doing about generative AI? And I think that's a question that there hasn't, at least from what I've read, there hasn't been a ton of instruction or guidance from universities on how professors are supposed to be handling if they catch someone using ChatGPT. Is it something that's supposed to be encouraged as far as enhancing work? Like, where are we right now of what is useful and not cheating versus what is cheating? Like, there's so much gray area still. So Professor Schaefer is going to be here to talk about that. Then Civic Media's sports reporter Mike Clemens is going to join us for a second to give us an update on what to expect for the what he thinks we should be looking out for the Packers game this weekend. And then Alex Brusen is going to be here, who is a board member for an organization called We Got This, which was actually not ironically, but not planned, was mentioned when we talked to James Causey earlier this week about one of the very successful programs in Milwaukee that is keeping kids busy and out of trouble. And it's been so successful that they actually don't have enough room. And it comes down to one, their activity, gardening. Just an organization after Debbie Bry's own heart. So we have a very packed show today. But the headline that caught my eye this morning, and my question is Elon Musk Tony Stark or Hydra? And I'm excited to talk to you about Greg about this, because Greg, you are a very big Marvel fan.
I am.
So you know way more about Marvel lore than I do. But I read this headline this morning, and it feels like something that is cut out of a Avengers movie. So Musk cut internet to Ukraine's military as it was attacking Russian fleet. So if you already have feelings about this, if you've already read this article, 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. But allow me to draw the analogies that I see in this situation. And what I think the ethical problem is that one man can make an impact on a foreign war.
Okay.
And doesn't that feel like superhero stakes a little bit, where it's like, oh, Tony Stark, as this one of the richest men and most powerful men, can just decide to meddle in foreign affairs. And that's basically where Elon Musk is now. And so this has come out. It was an excerpt from the biography of Elon Musk that's coming out next week. And there was an excerpt obtained by CNN. And according to the biographer, last year, Musk secretly ordered his engineers to turn off Starlink satellites near Crimea as Ukrainian submarines approached the Russian naval fleet for a sneak attack. And Ukraine, if you'll remember it, I think because when he first was doing this, he was actually kind of like applauded and glorified for lending Starlink. Even this name Starlink is like so comic book-y. And
it's one step away from Starklink.
right? And so at first, when he had all his satellites for like Starlink for communication, when he first was lending that or like allowing like whatever, making it possible for Ukraine to depend on it during the war, everyone, especially when it first started, everyone was like, "Oh, this is so great." But it's also like give it and you can take it away. And
in huge fashions too.
And that's what he apparently did, because Ukraine now relies on Starlink for communication, and they were forced to abandon that operation last year when unilaterally Elon Musk just decided that we shouldn't, because this was basically what he said, of something like he thought it was going to be like a Pearl Harbor type attack, and he didn't want it on his hands. But either like by meddling in this, your hands are already dirty, right?
And you're interceding on the side that just wants to be free.
So Musk reportedly turned off Starlink due to discomfort with the idea that his internet beaming satellite network was enabling a Ukraine offensive, which he believed could lead to a larger conflict involving nuclear weapons. He asked Isaacson, who's the biographer, "How am I in this war?" and said Starlink was not meant to be involved in wars. Then why did you get involved in the first place? Like he inserted himself and he offered it. So like once you're there, like haven't you already picked a side?
Yeah, not to mention you have how many thousands upon thousands of Starlink satellites up there. We can go through the memory, we can go through the data, and we can find plenty of people using those satellites for wrong. So don't pick this one tiny moment, especially when you're not picking the side that literally is trying to tell a guy, get off our property.
But he still, I think that's not a fair, because it was like only in this case that he turned it off. He's still providing internet to them. He hasn't cut off internet entirely.
But
isn't he, because like their internet has been, so he's been involved in the war because he sent Starlink satellite dishes to the front lines in the invasion, and subsequently because their internet was wiped out in parts of the country. So he offered. So in one way, you have to, if you're saying that he's picking the wrong side, he hasn't really, because he is picking Ukraine, just not in this instance.
Well, that's what I am saying, is that in this instance, he is not really done. It's not a good move. It's not a good look. And also to say, I don't want this to be in my hands. Well, your internet technology probably provides a lot of ability for people to do horrible things as it is. So what
do you mean by that?
Well, people are using, his Starlink satellites are being used by lots of people.
Are they? I know less about Starlink. I don't know. I have not done a lot of research on Starlink. Who else is using Starlink?
Well, at this moment, I can't tell you who their names are, but my point is that they're probably being used for not 100% great things all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no,
you don't follow me. Okay.
Well, it's mostly because I don't. If you give me an example, I just have not heard of any other examples of what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying people who are utilizing that, it's fine. Okay. My point is that like, if people are utilizing those satellites, you can't say that everything being done with those satellites all the time is being done for good.
Oh, so you're saying hypothetically?
Yeah.
I thought you were like there was actual examples that you were referencing.
I can certainly try to find some.
No, but but you're saying when one offers a service,
yes,
you are not the arbitrator of what they can use that service for.
Yeah, especially in the sense, especially in the fact that if you're providing for this group of people with Ukraine in mind, why would you turn off this one time? Yeah. Especially in a situation where they're just, like I've said twice, they're at war and they're fighting for their right to survive against a person who's just trying to take it away from them.
And so that's my bigger question of why this like makes me think of a plot, like a storyline. Like literally this makes me think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you are the Marvel guru out of the two of us. Like in the plot line, if I remember correctly, between Civil War and Infinity War of Avengers, there is like basically, is it Sokovia?
Sokovia happens in Age of Ultron.
Okay, and it's like they basically like level a city.
Well,
The Avengers.
The bad guy does.
But like they're part of it. And so there's like all
Yes.
these intercontinental hearings on what should we do with the Avengers, because they have so much
Mhm.
power
And that's Civil War.
and that's Civil War. And so, and like it splits up the team and all this stuff, but it's basically this bigger philosophical question of when you have all powerful entities, we obviously don't have superheroes, but in reality, here is one singular man who has this much power, who is not a government official, who's not elected in any way.
Yeah.
And yet governments are reliant on him. And how comfortable are we with him just being able to unilaterally make decisions like this that literally impact wars? And like, am I wrong that this feels like a comic book?
This feels comic book. It also feels like a crime.
Is it though?
I don't know. It just feels bad.
It
like,
feels weird.
Yeah.
It feels like a weird storyline to be living in. So we would love to hear from you on this topic. 844-967-2789. I see Jack already on the line, so we will take him when we come back from the break. But stick around. Let us know, is Elon Musk more Tony Stark or more Hydra? 844-967-2789. More after the break.
Uh-oh, did a rock hit your windshield from that semi? Don't worry, Autoglass Now offers fast, reliable, and convenient service. For a limited time only, Autoglass Now is offering 50% off windshield replacement. Call your local Autoglass Now today for full details.
Saturdays and Sundays at 1. Don't miss Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring legendary Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Football, life, and fun.
Earl, you've been driving a Yugo. They just gave you a brand new Ferrari with turbo boost. So enjoy it, brother.
Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Saturdays and Sundays at 1 on the Civic Media Network and on the Civic Media app.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with highs around 69. Northerly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight, lows around 49. Ample sunshine expected tomorrow, highs level off around 72. Mid-70s Sunday, much cooler Monday, with highs in the upper 60s and thunderstorms. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 57.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. He is Greg Bach on the board. Is that a cappella group singing a Marvel theme song?
So that is one man singing all the parts to the Avengers theme song. It's like
It's on a loop.
it's him singing. Yeah, it's him singing like 50 parts by himself.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. Then afterwards, you're like, this. Wow. Go touch grass, bro.
I like acapella though, but I'm a theater kid.
If it's good, it's great. If it's bad, it's like improv. When improv is good, you're like, oh my god. When it's bad, you're like, I need to leave right now.
This is uncomfortable.
We just got a really quick text message. I want to say 262. Musk is more like Tony Stank.
Oh.
Which is, by the way, a Civil War reference.
Is it really?
Yeah. But,
That's funny.
Jack from Merrimack, where'd you go? That's all I want to know.
All right. Well, Jack, call back because we would love to hear from you. But we do have Ron from Milwaukee on the phone. Ron, is Elon Musk more like Tony Stark or Hydra?
You know, I think he's more like Elon Musk. I mean,
Fair.
He'd be like Lex Luthor, like Lex Luthor. You know.
Jumping genres or jumping to DC.
Jumping to DC.
Yeah.
Industrialist, scientist, you know, millionaire. Yeah, that's the guy. But as to whether he can do this, there's some question about that because there was a great deal of deregulation of telecommunications in the United States in the 1980s, and cable and internet service in general were deregulated. It was like, whatever you want to do, you know, that explains Twitter, that explains Facebook and Google. But I think there might be a call to re-regulate it. The other thing is, this has been going on, this sort of thing has been going on in imperialist societies for a long time. I'm reminded of an earlier media giant, William Randolph Hearst. He was lampooned in Citizen Kane as the big newspaper magnate. You know, they had papers all over the country, and there was an episode where, a real life episode where he assigned a photographer. He said, go down to Cuba and get ready because there's going to be action down there, and I want daily headlines and pictures. And the guy said, well, there isn't a war in Cuba. There isn't a war in, with Spain. And Hearst snapped back and said, you supply the pictures, I'll supply the war.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
He did by yellow journalism and talking people into a rage. And I mean, who does that now? You know, Fox News, Elon Musk, and it's because they can, because there's this free speech idea about news, and it's not 100% free speech, but they don't have any. There's nobody looking after what they do and then saying, is this good for the country, and is this a violation of national security, which I think it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Ron, are you a historian? Are you a lawyer? I'm so interested that you have all this information.
Well, I was a journalist for many years, but also for a number of years, I was the city of Milwaukee's telecommunications director, and I had to tangle with the cable company.
So you have a history in this of knowing how some of this works. But I totally agree with you. Like, I'm nervous about oligarchs in general. Like the fact that we're so reliant on the very few rich people deciding what gets funded anymore because they just have the money for their philanthropy versus like a public good that it should be funded by the people and our taxes versus like, well, this is what your like du jour topic is that you care about. Cause like, that's like a story with a lot of the Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation is they're like, oh, well, this isn't working. So we're just going to pull funding and like projects will just disappear.
I agree. And the odd thing is I may be having a wrong echo here, but there was some controversy earlier before this autobiography or this biography came out where Musk was threatening in a more general way to impair Ukraine before the war really started or got hot. I think it was already after the war started because he had given them the use of his Starlink system for free, and then he was saying, I'm going to start charging for this. And there was such an outcry on that he backed off. But obviously he didn't back off.
Obviously, and obviously it's still like he's in charge. So it just comes down to him and what mood he's in on any given day, which is a very dangerous place to put someone with that much power who is doesn't always come off as like the most stable. So thanks so much for the call, Ron. Greg, do we have time for one more call?
We got about a minute and a half left, so I don't know if we can get to that one. We got some text too, so.
Well, Ken, if you want to hold on, because Luke's going to join, but I think Luke might have an opinion on this because he's also a Marvel fan. So, Ken, hold on to the line. Which text did you want to read, Greg?
Text from Lynn from Oconomowoc, our friend Lynn. She said, my son subscribes to Starlink for internet services.
Oh, interesting.
The dish and setup was $500 plus monthly was $99, now is $109. and Spectrum wanted $5,000 to $6,000 run cable from the street to his house, and said Starlink is more dependable than Spectrum. And then when I looked it up, it said that the customers are rural and remote communities, governments, businesses, and urban customers seeking alternatives to traditional ISPs. So a lot of people are using it.
A lot of people are using it.
Yeah.
Well, good to know. Thanks for the text, Lynn. Ken, hold on to the line. We're going to take a break. Luke Mathers is going to be here. We're going to hear his best, worst, and weirdest of the week. We'll get his thoughts on Elon and how it correlates to comic book narratives. So stick around. We're going to have a lot more fun on this Friday, September 8th. I'm Kristen Bry. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Your home for the Devil's Advocates. Weekday afternoons from 4 until 6 on The Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. This just in the election interference case, a new report shows the grand jury overwhelmingly voted to recommend the indictment of Donald Trump.
Can you hear me?
There was just one vote against it for both Trump and Rudy Giuliani. They also recommended charging David Perdue, who was ultimately indicted. An American stuck in a cave in Turkey, CBS's Ramy Inocencio.
Carl Heitmeyer is a friend and fellow cave rescuer.
What are the challenges here? When you're fit and strong, you can make that climb, you can squirm through, you can twist your body, contort yourself, bend over. When you're feeling sick, this is all very strenuous activity.
In New Delhi, India, President Biden was greeted with welcoming music ahead of the G20 summit. Excessive heat in Texas. Meteorologist Craig Allen.
Dallas once again in this area of an excessive heat warning where the actual air temperatures will run between 105 and 110.
CBS News Brief. I'm Stacy Lynn.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. They raised a glass yesterday to toast a 20-year-long project, finally coming to reality.
To the healthy, clean water for Waukesha for generations, and to Milwaukee Waterworks, which we'll be drinking. Cheers. Cheers.
Waukesha Mayor Sean Riley clinked glasses with Milwaukee's mayor during a ceremony. The water project involved approvals from 8 states and 2 Canadian provinces, as well as the installation of miles of pipeline. The transition is scheduled to happen next week. Dragonflies are running wild in the area. A Mequon Nature Preserve manager says the phenomenon is a natural occurrence and has positive implications. This season marks the migration period for dragonflies, and they're actively contributing to the ecosystem by preying on other insects, particularly mosquitoes. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Experience Nightlight, September 8th and 9th from 5 until 10:30 p.m. Presented by Joy Engine. The dazzling spectacle is an immersive 4D light festival taking place in Milwaukee's historic Mitchell Street neighborhood. Digital animations, dance, music, art, and fashion combine to create a visual, family-friendly sensory experience outside of 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. The event is family-friendly and free to the public. Don't miss this iconic event. Nightlight, where art comes to life. Information at joyengine.org.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Why are interscholastic sports called the last classroom of the day? Because they teach students important life lessons like teamwork,
accountability, and perseverance. School sports are so much more than a game. They're about developing the whole person. That's why they're an essential part of every student's education.
Encourage your student to participate in the last classroom of the day. Interscholastic Sports in Wisconsin. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show...
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristen Bride. Greg Bach is on the board, and we are joined by our friend, our colleague, executive producer at Civic Media, wearer of many hats. He's back for his second time on our Civic Media crossover Fridays. Luke Mathers.
Is that returning champion status?
I think
No,
so.
I
I don't know.
tied.
Did you
I
win last
tied.
time?
No, I tied with Jane last time, so it's
Oh.
not defending champion, I guess. or
Wow, you just
returning
took yourself
champion.
down
Yeah,
real
I know.
We wouldn't have known. You could have told me anything, and I would have believed you.
Jane would have known, and so I gotta respect her in her absence to not say that I defeated her when really I eked out a tie barely. She had a lead. It was very I was worried, but I came back and tied in the tiebreaker. So
Tied in the tiebreaker. So we will get to that, our weekly headline quiz in the next segment. And Jane will be back on Monday. For everyone who listens to this show for Jane, she'll be back on Monday. I don't blame you, but she will be returning. She'll be very relaxed. But I'm sure she'll still be cynical.
How's it going, Jane? I'm doing great, man.
I know she just comes back as like optimistic and like cheery as I am. And it's like, what did Portugal do to you?
What happens?
All right. So before we get to your best, worst, and weirdest of the week, Luke, do you have thoughts on Elon Musk and just wielding this kind of power over other people's wars?
It's not great.
Not great.
It's not great. It feels bad. See, when you first hear about Starlink, you're like, oh, this could be really cool. And then you hear stories like this, and it's like, oh, maybe it's not so cool after all. Maybe this is a lot of power for one individual to wield. Because I've had friends or family members that have gone and they can work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So they've use Starlink service to go work remotely in the national parks in Utah, which is like really cool because if your job allows you to just have to remote in from a laptop and you can get your work done, it can be really flexible and I think it's pretty costly. So the people doing this are obviously pretty well off, but it's a nice experience if you can afford it and have the means to do so. And it's like, oh, wow, that's just like luxury beyond the means. You can get internet anywhere where you are because they're just satellites flying around in the night sky or the day sky. It's just, and then you're like, oh wait, it could also be used to turn off communications during a war. Yeah, maybe that's weird. Which, yeah,
it also like in the same way that we've seen Elon Musk just like as he's trying to like potentially ban the Anti-Defamation League from Twitter. Because he's like, I don't like you anymore. I don't like what you're doing. So no Twitter for you, no X for you. And it's like, oh, can you just do that with internet? I'm like, this government, I don't like you anymore. So no internet for you. I know you're like totally reliant on us, but sorry.
It just goes to show how much of a Marvel nerd I am that the gentleman Ron called. He's like, it's like Lex Luthor. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, DC. Okay.
I was the same way.
Your movie sucks.
Same way. I was comparing Elon to Justin Hammer because he's kind of just the dweeb. And so therefore that's kind of the better comparison, I think, between whether or not he's Tony Stark or Hydra.
Yeah.
He's just Justin Hammer. He just wants to be important and he's striving to have relevance. And that's what
good
But he does have relevance. I think that's the thing that's so interesting.
Okay, not I guess just relevance. He's striving to be liked. He wants to be liked.
I was just talking about this morning with my longtime family friend whose house we were staying at, and we were talking. This was a couple of months ago, but remember when there was the tweet that was like, I think the GOP tweeted it out, and it was like Trump, Kanye, Elon, like period. And I want to say it was The Atlantic that took that tweet and talked about this type of personality that we see in those three specifically, but also others, in being so wildly monetarily successful and yet still existing with this chip on your shoulder because you just don't think you're getting the respect that you deserve. And that is the difference, right? There is this thing with Elon, at least in how he shows up, and I interpret it in his actions, is like, he's so wildly successful. He's so wildly powerful. And yet it's that thing. It's like, but you don't like me yet.
Yeah.
And there is like some hole in him that is never, it's the hole in the bucket that can never be filled.
Well,
and it's the same thing with Trump. And it's, I don't know, Kanye has a different story potentially.
Probably comes from being brought up by
Daddy
parents.
Issues.
Yeah. I mean, his
Well, it's also just being born on third base and then you like get walked home and you're like, I had a home run. And it's like that mentality. And anybody that calls it out, he's like, no, I scored though. I had a home run. It's like, no, but you didn't hit the ball. You didn't have to run the bases. You were already on third base. And it's just weird.
Pizza's on me. No, it's on your father. He's paying for the pizza.
Really, but in his case, it's not pizza; it's Emerald Mines.
It's Emerald Mines. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love how that's just his
blood money.
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll come to a close on that issue because I want to hear Luke, as someone who reads a fair amount of news.
Some would say too much.
Maybe, ask my therapist. What did you think was the best story of the week?
The best story of the week. This one was hard because honestly, there's a lot of not great headlines specifically around Labor Day. So I had to go searching for the best headline. And because one didn't just come right off to the top of my head this week. And I found it though, because one of the best stories that I've been following that I'm just really excited for and really looking forward to the season that will come out for all of the display of excellent Wisconsin food next year is Top Chef. And so the headline over at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel talking about the judges and the host of Top Chef continuing to highlight the excellent aspects of Milwaukee as they are filming season 21 of Top Chef. So the headline over at JS Online, Zaffiro's Pizza on Farwell, Birch and a Brewer, Top Chef hosts, judge continue sharing Milwaukee food adventures on Instagram. And so the one weekend I didn't go to the farmer's market about 2 weeks ago, it was a Saturday farmer's market here in Dane County, and Top Chef was filming. I didn't go. I should have. I drove past it. We were going to breakfast and we were like, should we stop? We don't necessarily need anything from the market this week. So I missed the filming that I could have seen here in Madison, but the crew
could have been on camera. You could have been in the episode.
I would have just melted. I would have been a puddle.
That was the bougiest sentence I've ever heard in my life. We didn't go to the farmer's market, so we missed the filming. Went to breakfast though.
I live a very laid back lifestyle, but I would fangirl very, very, very hard over meeting Tom Colicchio. Like it would be amazing.
Interesting.
It would be. Amazing.
Meanwhile, you'd be like, that guy's on TV. I'd be like, who is that? I have no clue.
He was like on the sidewalk just watching the filming as it happened for one of the competitions that they were doing here in Madison.
But I will say I'm excited. This will I've never watched a season of Top Chef. I will watch.
You're missing out.
I will watch this season, and I think it'll be so good for Wisconsin. Yeah. Because they have been everywhere. I've had multiple friends in Milwaukee who've like had to sign an NDA because they were grocery shopping and all of a sudden they're on camera and they're like, oh, hey. And the different restaurants that they're going to feature, the different chefs they're going to feature between like across the state, because I think they've gone all over the place. I'm pretty sure they went up to Door County.
I believe Door County's on the schedule, but I don't know if they've been there yet. Apple season is right around the corner, so I have a feeling apples may get incorporated in that challenge. I love Top Chef. Like, I can't tell you enough how much I love the show and how much I love Wisconsin. So, like, the fact that Top Chef is hosting here in Wisconsin, like, it's amazing to me. So, and I love it. And Zaffiro's Pizza is like the best pizza in Milwaukee. So, as the Milwaukee boy in me too, like, seeing that get highlighted at the top of not only the Journal-Sentinel article talking about it, but that's where these like culinary icons are going to eat some za, like, and they ordered right too. They got the fried eggplant from Zaffiro's, which is just incredible.
Kristen, look at him. He's so
adorable
excited
right now. I found my best headline of the week for you. I was going out and shared it.
This is the kind of enthusiasm we hope everyone brings to this segment.
I love this so much. I hope they go to Quick Trip and just be like, all right, we're going to try gas station food today.
Oh, that would be an excellent challenge. They already were at Leon's. They've done the custard scene. So that was Cops they've been to as well.
Yeah.
Are you shaking your head at Leon's?
Leon's
sir?
is fine. It's not like anything special to me. It's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have a favorite custard place, Greg?
I would actually probably say Cops. I like Cops more than Leon's. I went to Leon's so much as a kid, and it wasn't lauded when I was a child. Now all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, Leon's is amazing." I'm like, it's good. I'm not saying, "Hey, Leon, don't come hit me. I don't want you. I don't need I don't need you in my grill." But it's fine. It's Luke.
You were
Luke, look
so
at me.
privileged. You see, this is how
Yes.
privileged you were, Greg. You grew up on Leon, so you don't have the appreciation for it. I grew up on it too, but I have the appreciation.
There was a custard place growing up that no one ever talks about that it was just fantastic though. Murph's in Waukesha. I don't know if they're still around. They had huge burgers, same basically Cops, but just a different name.
That's how I feel about
Oscars
Michael's in
is
Madison.
great too. Where in Madison?
Michael's frozen custard, and the one that it's on Monroe Street that's now closed. It's now a chocolate shop, and it's like mint green now, and I'm like, every time I drive by it, it's like, oh, my childhood. Oh God. All right, we gotta move on. What is your worst headline of the week, Luke? Matters.
The worst one. This one's tough because it was Labor Day weekend. So this past weekend, we're celebrating a short week in honor of Labor Day this week. But some not so great labor statistics going on here in Wisconsin. This one over at Wausau Pilot and Review. The headline: despite low unemployment, new report shows Wisconsin's economy is leaving some workers behind. And unfortunately, it is the workers that get left behind almost every time when workers are left behind. So women in particular, but also minorities, talking about how the recovery from the pandemic, that we saw all of a sudden an instantaneous stop in the economy and everybody had to reshuffle their priorities. And we've seen a lot of job growth and return, but it's not for everybody. And so it's important to talk about when we are seeing these excellent job numbers in some cases, that it's not excellent for everybody. And so just reminding that there is still work that can be done in this recovery to make sure that everybody is being helped in the return back to a post-COVID world, because it's not the case that automatically on its own, any problems that were existing before COVID and the restructuring that we've seen in recent years are still going to be continued problems unless we address them.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit yesterday because I was really surprised by the fact that nationally we're at the smallest gap between the labor participation rate between men and women like ever recorded, and I was wondering how that reflected in Wisconsin numbers. So I'm gonna have to go read that article. But
well, and in the report, it has the labor force participation among Wisconsin women fell to its lowest levels since the late 80s. So
wow.
Like,
so that's like bucking the national trend of where Wisconsin is.
So here in the state of Wisconsin, not great.
Great.
Not great.
Well, awesome. All right. Well, let's finish off with the couple minutes that we have. What was your weirdest headline?
This one is a great story. I don't know. Have you heard about the pig situation here in Madison?
Vaguely. I feel like I've seen that there's some beloved pig that's no longer allowed to be housed in a neighborhood or something. Am I getting this right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you started to. So the health officials showed up earlier this summer to a residence here in Madison.
East Side, I'm guessing?
Yes. No.
Not the east side.
Near West Side.
Near West Side.
Right off the bike path, near I want to say off of Odana somewhere, but
okay, that was where I grew up.
Yep.
I know where. Yeah.
So
okay.
Your neck of the woods, and this pig lives right off the bike path, and so passerbyers would be able to feed the pig little slices of apple and other fruits and vegetables that would be left out. Kids would wave to the pig as they said.
Wilbur.
Rudy.
Okay.
But very similar, Rudy, not Wilbur. But there's been a Save the Pig campaign like in Wilbur. And so now we have city officials looking to change Madison ordinances to allow pigs to reside in the city. And so this headline, pigs should be allowed in Madison, Health Board says after Rudy debate. So this one over at the State Journal. And essentially the community rallying behind Rudy. And it was so weird to see this first pop up earlier this summer of somebody getting cited by the public health department for having a pig in Madison. And it's kind of done this 180 now where it's like one person complained, got the health department to issue the citation. And now city ordinances are changing here in Madison to support Rudy.
That Wow, power to the people. Power to the people when it matters about pigs.
There we go. And the local government getting involved and saying, hey, we want pigs here. And the question of whether or not horses or donkeys, I think, would be allowed, that was like, no, they make too much noise.
Their poops are much bigger.
If Robin Voss can be in the city, so can Rudy.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll see how these guys do. Headline quiz, 7 questions. Head to head.
We'll see.
All right. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
please be done.
Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
People won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Overcast skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 69. Winds out of the north 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight. Lows level off around 49. Highs level off around 72 tomorrow. Partly cloudy Sunday with daytime highs approaching 75. 68 chance for scattered thunderstorms Monday. For Civic Media,
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. Greg Bach is on the board, and we are rounding out our lovely Civic Media host who's crossed over and is here today, Luke Mathers, co-host of Town Call, which you can listen to right after this show at 12:15, right after our noon newscast, which he co-hosts with William Walter, where they take your calls and get your opinion because it's a new take on local radio.
Yeah, and we're excited. Today's Friday, which means it's most Wisconsin headlines of the weekday, which Will and I go back and forth to see who's
quite the rivalry that you guys have created for yourself. I don't know how much of that is real versus performative, but it is spicy.
It happened more or less organically. I didn't know it was going to become a competition, and then it did. And Will cares deeply about competition. I found out through this process.
So it's a little one-sided competition. It's a little like he maybe cares a little bit more than you.
He definitely cares more. But now that I know how much he cares, I need to make sure that I'm not just laying down and letting him win every single week. He did try to claim a victory, and it's like considered a half point. I'm still contesting that aspect. I had a scheduled absence, a really important life event last month.
Did you got?
I got hitched.
Oh,
I got
that
hitched.
thing.
So I had a
That small
scheduled
thing.
Friday absence, and Will's like, "Okay, in your absence, I win." And I was like, I
What?
don't think that's how that works.
No.
But, he's consistently saying that he's a half a game higher in the standings than he is, but still behind me, still trailing.
Well, I'm pretty sure. So Aaron Zommers is usually the judge, right? Which is the producer who, if I'm not I'm correct in saying that Aaron reports to you in the hierarchy of civic media, right?
I would have to check my notes, but maybe.
Because Greg voiced that concern yesterday that Greg also reports to you. He's like,
Not
I
during
can't
this
beat
segment.
my boss.
Not
but...
during this segment. I am a willing participant. It is mano y mano, Greg. There's no worries for upstaging me.
Luke, I just want to say something really quick. You look very handsome today.
Completely unrelated.
Yeah, just
All right. So speaking of that, let's get to our headline quiz. Luke, do you want to go first or second?
Greg, which would you prefer?
I believe she asked you first.
I will
first.
go second. I'll go second. There we go.
That worked out well. All right, Greg.
Yes.
First question.
Yeah.
So reminder of the rules. The first 6 questions are all multiple choice. The 7th question is whoever answers first and correctly. So it's a speed thing.
Oh, never mind.
All right.
Mango. Okay.
Question number 1, Greg Bach.
Yes.
According to a report from the nonprofit Mozilla Foundation, which product category has the worst privacy practices? Smartwatches, mental health apps, smart speakers, cars.
Cars.
Ding, 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 ding. It is, in fact, cars. Your cars are listening to you, whether you knew. Don't be worried about Alexa. Your car, you have a newer car. It's listening to you. It's taking all of that data and sending it back to.
How does it categorize road rage? Because that's just the
good
only thing that I'm
question.
doing, usually behind the wheel.
Is traffic that bad in Madison?
I just have a short temper, I
Got
guess.
it.
with
You just
At least
getting
you know that.
suggested,
behind the wheel.
just
At
getting
least you can own
suggested
that,
Rage
Luke.
Against the Machine on your phone all the time.
All right, Luke, which legendary rock band will release a new original album next month for the first time in almost 20 years? The Who, the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, Aerosmith.
Oh, Jesus. Feel like the Stones would not be the answer here, so I'm going to go with the Who.
Unfortunately, it is the Stones.
It is the
I mean, it's
Stones?
not unfortunate. It actually sounds like it's going to be awesome, but it is the Stones. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, the Stones are coming up with
The Stones haven't had an album in 20 years?
Yeah, they've been
Yeah.
touring forever,
I was just saying,
but
I
they've
feel like
not
there
a
would
new
have
album.
been a purpose to that tour, but I guess just they can play all of the hits.
The
and they don't-
purpose
yeah, I
is to
was
make
saying,
money
I
because
was-
people will pay to go see them.
True. Silly me. See,
All right, Greg, you're up 1.
Yeah.
Greg, back to you. What costs the global economy about $423 billion per year, billion with a B, according to a recent UN-backed report? A, natural disasters. B, decline in productivity during NFL season. C, invasive species. D, email typos.
Oh. Can you read the question again?
What costs the global economy about $423 billion per year, according to a recent UN-backed report?
Okay. Answer is C.
Invasive species?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Greg's on a roll today.
Oh, I feel so smart.
All right, Luke. Wisconsin question. Republican Assembly Speaker Robin Vos announced the formation of 4 bipartisan task forces last month. Which of the following is not a focus of one of the task forces? So this is, you have 5 options. You got to pick one that is not.
okay.
Childhood obesity, truancy in education, K through 12 education, gun safety, human trafficking, artificial intelligence.
I know that AI and obesity are 2 of them. I'm going to say that the suicides are so high, so it should be on guns, but I'm going to say the guns is not the task force.
Ding, ding, ding. It
Okay,
is not. Human trafficking and truancy are, but no gun safety.
No gun safety.
No gun safety task force yet.
Yes.
Womp.
Yet.
Womp.
All right, back to you, Greg. Number
Yes.
5. So score is 2-1.
Greg, don't mess up.
What famous Wisconsin statue has been cleaned and restored to all of its glory after being vandalized earlier this week? Lady Liberty on Lake Mendota, the Forward statue, the statue of famed abolitionist Colonel Hans Christian Hegg, or the Bronze Fonz?
A. It's the Fonz.
No, he said A. He said A. The A was his answer.
I didn't finish my sentence, sir. And as you are not my boss right now, I'd appreciate you respect me and keep quiet during my question.
All right, we got to hurry up. So yes, it's the bronze Fonz. All right, we got 2 more questions. We got to hurry. Fill in the blank, Luke. 2 construction workers allegedly plowed a hole through the blank to create a shortcut for their work. The Earth's core, Great Wall of China, the Colosseum, the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Oh, Jesus. Why are they good? Any of those shouldn't have holes in them.
No, they should not.
Great Wall of China.
Ding, ding, ding. Got it right. All right. So we're 3-2. So Luke, you have another chance to tie.
I get tie, and that's the best I can hope for on As Goes Wisconsin.
All right. How much money has the Democratic Party of Wisconsin pledged
$4 million.
Okay. You got it right. Sorry, Greg.
I'm 2 online in Wisconsin, and I answered first.
Let me finish the question for people who didn't know what I was going to say. How much
Sneaky.
money has the Democratic Party of Wisconsin pledged to spend on an ad war in the fight over the state Supreme Court impeachment threat? And it is at least $4 million. So another tie for Luke. Greg, your job is safe.
Also, Aaron Zomer says he does report to Luke, but is careful to be impartial judge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except in my absence, when he accepted half of the win for the day I wasn't here. So Aaron and I are still having that conversation.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. Luke, thank you so much for joining us. As always, so fun. We have the top of the hour newscast. And when we come back, we will be talking to Professor David Williamson Schaefer about ChatGPT and students using it. And is it good? Is it bad? What can the professor is doing about it? So stay tuned for that conversation after the top of the hour news. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The test is over.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month for news, weather, and emergency information. A new bill in Congress would make sure AM radio remains in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Thank you for listening to your local civic media radio station on air. Now join us anytime by finding and following our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram pages. You'll also find social media links for your favorite shows and hosts on our website, civicmedia.us.
You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. We begin in Georgia, where we've just learned a special grand jury that recommended charging former President Trump and 18 others with trying to change the 2020 election results actually recommended a total of 39 people be charged. Among them, Senator Lindsey Graham, former Georgia Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, as well as former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson on District Attorney Fonnie Willis' decision.
What I take away from it is really why she decided to charge this case as a large criminal enterprise, because you see a lot of people involved and maybe not always involved in the same actions, but it comes down to the same purpose, and that purpose is to try and overturn the election.
The final report shows there was only one vote against recommending Mr. Trump be charged. An international team of rescuers has reached an American explorer who's been stuck in a cave more than 3,000 feet below the entrance in southern Turkey's Taurus Mountains after he got sick last Saturday. They say he's recovered enough to start moving him out. But Carl Heitmeyer, a friend and fellow cave rescuer in New Jersey, says it won't be easy.
They're going to have tight spots. They're going to have restrictions. They're going to have belly crawls. It's cold. The water is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to get wet.
The warning's gone out to Texans to ease up on electricity, but it's not so easy considering the sweltering heat wave there. Correspondent Omar Villafranca is in the thick of it.
Here in Texas, all eyes will be on the state's power grid. They've been asking customers to conserve power during the hottest part of the day to avoid outages, but that's going to be a challenge since temperatures are expected to reach 107, 108 here in Dallas.
President Biden has arrived in India for the G20 summit. National security expert Jamil Jaffer tells CBS News.
We'll expect a lot of discussions about trade, global commerce, certainly climate, which has been an issue at many of the G20 summits in the recent past will come up. And then, of course, technology issues and cooperation and competition, particularly with China and Russia, both of whose leaders will not be there.
New trouble for the head of soccer in Spain.
Prosecutors have just filed a formal complaint with Spain's High Court accusing suspended Soccer Federation President Luis Rubiales of sexual assault and coercion. He continues to insist the kiss he planted on the lips of World Cup player Jenny Hermoso was consensual. She has filed a legal complaint against him, and now Rubiales could face a criminal trial. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
The Dow is up 83 points. S&P ahead 14. This is CBS News.
You need to hire fast and hire right? You need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates efficiently. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
The Civic Media Network of radio stations across Wisconsin. We are your hometown radio, refreshed.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Waukesha Mayor Sean Riley and Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson raised glasses yesterday to celebrate the realization of a 20-year-long, $300 million water project.
To the healthy, clean water for Waukesha for generations, and to Milwaukee Waterworks, which we'll be drinking. Cheers. Cheers.
The transition from groundwater to fresh water sourced from Lake Michigan via Milwaukee is anticipated to take about 5 days to complete, with that process starting next week. The bronze fonz has been fixed. City maintenance crews in Milwaukee say they've successfully removed a black substance from the statue located along Milwaukee's Riverwalk. It appears someone had coated the fonz with black latex paint. The cleaning process took about 6 hours to complete. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Experience Nightlight September 8th and 9th from 5 until 10:30 p.m. Presented by Joy Engine. The dazzling spectacle is an immersive 4D light festival taking place in Milwaukee's historic Mitchell Street neighborhood. Digital animations, dance, music, art, and fashion combine to create a visual, family-friendly sensory experience outside of 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. The event is family-friendly and free to the public. Don't miss this iconic event. Nightlight, where art comes to life. Information at joyengine.org.
Folks, I tell you this much, the Cripes Cast is just the butter on my cheese. Cockroaches, not that bad. They call them palmetto bugs in South Carolina. Same thing you can call them up here.
Are they really
And
palmetto bugs?
they're, Yeah, and they're a great source of protein. They're going to be the lobsters of the future.
They also got salmonella, and they can lay like 40 eggs at once.
Well, they
I
gotta
consider
work
that
out a
pretty
few
bad.
kinks there, okay? They gotta work out a few kinks. Cripes Cast every Saturday and Sunday at noon across Civic Media and on the Civic Media app.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
You are never far away from your favorite local radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic.
Flatbread unless there's goat cheese on it. Buy nuts.
while someone went to private school. They knocked down the original building, which was just a building, and then they built an actual castle, and it is gorgeous. Every time a friend of mine from out of town comes, I take him there because I'm that much of a podunk hick.
Magic people, voodoo people.
Oh, I like this one.
This is The Prodigy.
The Prodigy. Okay. Jane, how do you rate this one?
Oh, I'm having a ball.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin. I am your host, Kristen Bry, along with Greg Bach on the board, and I am recording live from Madison today, my hometown. Always fun to be here in the Civic Media headquarters. And what I noticed as I was driving to the studio this morning from the west side, driving down to State Street through campus, is that the kids are back. And so lots of kids I shouldn't call them kids, young adults, students, UW-Madison students walking, going to class. They're here. And it made me think, it's always been fun when growing up in Madison and having all the students be back. But it also was topical for our talk today with our next guest, because last month I read an article from Washington Post that had this headline: professors have a summer assignment, prevent ChatGPT chaos in the fall. And I was curious to talk to someone who is not only just a professor, but also knows a thing or two about AI and the ethics behind it. And so I'm so excited to talk to our next guest, Professor David Williamson Schaefer, who is a data philosopher, a quantitative ethnographer, and the Sears Bascom Professor of Learning Analytics and Educational Psychology at UW-Madison's School of Education. So I feel like you are poised to be an expert on the ethics of ChatGPT and how it's being used in college.
Well, I'm happy to pretend to be an expert anyway.
There we go. So I guess the first question is, I think just blatantly, is that headline accurate? Was there kind of a feeling over the summer of this is going to be a school year where it's the Wild West of how students are using generative AI?
Yeah, I think actually the term Wild West is kind of perfect. For those of us old enough to remember, say, when the internet first came out, and the World Wide Web in the early 1990s, or video games started to be a big thing in the late 2000s. Nobody's quite sure exactly what it is that they should be doing. And so there's a lot of experimentation and a lot of worry. And I think also in some places, a lot of excitement. So is it, at least in your experience with UW-Madison, has there been much instruction or guidance given from an administration level of like, this is how we are deciding to do this? Or is it kind of each professor deciding how they want to monitor it, use it? Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware that we've received a whole lot of specific guidance. There are definitely universities that have been much more centralized in the way that they're thinking about how to respond to AI. But UW-Madison, I think, has a long and strong tradition of independence and broad thinking, and so there hasn't really been a central mandate yet. And I think the same thing is true, at least for the schools in Madison, and as far as I know, the schools across the state. There's really been no kind of central guidance about what to do or not to do.
Which is funny because I feel like that's kind of been that's where we are with government, as far as what are we doing with AI? What are we doing ahead of the election? And there's been lots of talk of we should do something. We should start to figure out the rules and how we play with this, but no one's really taken the first step to, I guess, draft what that looks like, at least that I'm aware of.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that where people are still experimenting to find out what AI can and can't do. And I think we're even still at the stage where not everybody's sure what we actually mean by AI or what's new or why it is that we're talking so much about it.
So for your experience, what are the risks of students, like, I guess, what's the useful way students could be using generative AI that enhances work versus replaces work? Because I think that's the fear, right? It becomes you just use ChatGPT to write a paper or to do your work for you. And is that a legitimate fear, or is it more stuff that could be a starting place for students?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, one thing that's really important is to understand what we're talking about when we talk about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is what's called a large language model. And literally what that means is that a company, in this case, OpenAI, has spent a ton of money scraping everything it can, legally or not, from the internet, and then using that to construct a giant database that tells it, given some set of words, what's the next most likely word to come. So it's literally just, if you think about autocomplete, when you type in like in Gmail or on sometimes in Word, right? It's just doing that on a massive scale. It's like a giant autocomplete engine. And the way I think about it is it's sort of like when you ask it questions, it's sort of like an undergraduate who skimmed the reading and is trying to fake their way through the class discussion. And so, first of all, let's just be clear. It's truly amazing that we've been able to build a tool that can do as well as an undergraduate who has skimmed the reading and is faking their way through the discussion. That's incredible. But it means that it has some things that you can do with it and some things that it probably won't do well. The way I think about it is, as educators, there's sort of 6 responses that we can have to these new tools. We could ignore it. We could ban it. We can try and outfox it. We can teach about it. We can actually teach it, or we can teach with it. I think the first 2 of those, ignoring it and banning it, are sort of either like, putting your head in the sand and just pretending that something's not there, or worse, trying to stuff everybody else's head in the sand and try and pretend that it's not there. All of the last 4 are viable options. I think the most exciting one, of course, is to teach with it. Right. So outfoxing it is essentially to reconstruct your assignments and the things that you do so that they're things that AI can't do. And an easy way to do that is to ask AI to do the assignments that you've assigned. And if it does a good job, well, then you probably need to fix it. There's some people who are teaching about AI. So they're talking about what the ethical concerns, and there are many of them, of using AI are, how it works, what it can do. There's some people who focus on actually having students build their own AI tools in a subject. And then the last one, which I think is the most exciting, is figuring out ways to incorporate AI into what students are doing. So, for example, have AI write an essay and have students critique it. Have AI give students feedback on an essay and then have them respond to it. Have students have a discussion with AI and then come together and talk about what the AI knew about a topic or didn't know about a topic. And there are teachers who are coming up with more and more creative things to do like that. But that's sort of the range of possibilities that are out there.
And that actually, the last one sounds fascinating to me, because I think about it, because so many headlines over the last 9 months, let's say, for when ChatGPT first came out, is all of these jobs now that are the like ChatGPT whisperer type jobs of knowing how to work with this tool, because so many companies are so hungry to be able to leverage it. And so the last option that you just said seems, as far as like teaching with it, is actually the biggest opportunity of not only still teaching critical thinking and the subject at hand, while not fighting against this thing that feels kind of inevitable.
Yeah, there's a professor at Harvard's business school who said that ChatGPT isn't going to replace people's jobs. What's going to happen is that people working with AI are going to replace people who are working without AI.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think certainly that's the way the future's headed. I do want to caution us a little bit. When the World Wide Web first came out, or when Google search first came out, which was, by the way, seemed at the time kind of as amazing as ChatGPT does now. I mean, it was like a miracle that you could search everything that was on the web and come back with something that was pretty close to what you were looking for. There were actually a lot of people who were talking about how important it was going to be to train students to make good search queries. Right. And then there was discussion about, like, studying do students have smart search strategies? And it turns out that in the long run, that really wasn't so important. Well, the effects of the internet were different than just that. So I suspect it's going to be a little while before we figure out what were the interesting parts of how students are going to use AI. But yes, I think absolutely working with it is critical.
So I have to imagine, with your background and what you are an expert in, I'm going to assume, are more on the excited side of what AI could bring and how it can be incorporated in learning and teaching versus buying into the scariness of it.
Well, sadly, it's a little of both. Yes.
Is it a little both? Okay.
I'm excited. I'm also a little skeptical. I'm skeptical for a couple of reasons. One is because there really are some important problems that AI is producing, and by that I don't mean like that we're going to have new AI overlords. I suppose that's a possibility, but I actually think that discussion, those sort of gloom and doom discussions, are blinding us to the more immediate issues, which are things like the fact that AI spews misinformation all the time, and that it can be used to create things online that are going to be spamming people or phishing for information, other things. AI is also like, it has well-known biases, and once you start to use something with biases without actually really focusing on where they came from, how we regulate what material AI uses to train itself, and so on, like that's a huge problem. Not to mention the amount of power that's being used to run AI machines is enormous. The environmental impact is huge. And so we actually also have to think about just the cost benefit trade-offs. I mean, how much energy are we willing to spend to have AI do something for us that probably isn't that much better than we could have done ourselves?
Then we can do it ourselves.
So they're real immediate problems. The other thing is, when the internet first came out, people were very excited. This is going to democratize information. It's going to give voice to the voiceless. It will allow people who are geographically distributed and isolated to find like-minded communities. And it turns out, well, what nobody really predicted, that what social media was going to do was essentially empower Nazis to organize well and to do all kinds of terrible things. We tend to be very bad about figuring out exactly what's going to come in the future of technology. And so I think, yes, I'm optimistic, but I'm also wary. And I think that's kind of how we should all approach this.
Well, it's fascinating, and I would love to have you back on again, Professor David Williamson Schaefer, to talk more about this, because I have a very thin surface level understanding of it. And so continuing to be able to tap into your knowledge as things progress, because it's developing fast, that's for sure. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. Professor Schaefer is the Sears Bascom Professor of Learning Analytics at UW-Madison. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Uh-oh, did a rock hit your windshield from that semi? Don't worry, Autoglass Now offers fast, reliable, and convenient service. For a limited time only, Autoglass Now is offering 50% off windshield replacement. Call your local Autoglass Now today for full details.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an organization who wants to know more, go to our website, civicmedia.us, and click on the Careers tab.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it.
When your kid can't find the language, find the lyrics. Start a conversation at soundedouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Overcast skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 69. Winds out of the north, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight. Lows level off around 49. Highs level off around 72 tomorrow. Partly cloudy Sunday with daytime highs approaching 75. 68, chance for scattered thunderstorms Monday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 61.
My sweet home, Chicago. Rogers snaps it quick. Pressure coming. Scrambles to his right. Pumps and runs. Aaron Rodgers is inside the pylon. Touchdown Packers. It's Rodgers running for the score.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. Greg Bach is on the board, and calling in on the phone is Civic Media's own sports reporter, Mike Clemens. Mr. Clemens, how are you today?
Pretty good. We got a final practice up here in Green Bay, and then we head to Sweet Home Chicago for the weekend for a huge game, 3:25 at Soldier Field against the Packers and the Bears.
It's that, and so the big question, we were talking to J.R. Radcliffe from Journal Sentinel yesterday, and the big question I have for you, Mike, is do you think the Bears will still suck this weekend?
Well, no, they have that tradition. I think that this coach that they've got, Matt Eberflus, is the best hire they've had at coach in quite a while since Lovie Smith was there. I think he's a smart guy. Luke Getsky is his offensive coordinator. Luke was a assistant coach here in Green Bay for many years. And Williams is their defensive coordinator. He was with Eberflus, and when the Colts had a really good defense there for a couple of years, and does also work for the Lions and the Vikings, so he's very familiar with the division. So the last regime put all the chips on Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, and he stunk. And then that kind of put them in draft pick hell. So they are rebuilding, and they made a big move this year, Kristen. And last year you saw Justin Fields, who they spent a first-round pick on, just like the Packers did with the Bears. But he had nobody to throw to. And so in the offseason, they made a trade with the Carolina Panthers for a good receiver named DJ Moore. And I think if Justin Fields can settle down and throw a safe pass over the middle or in the screens, DJ Moore is tough. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to be hard to bring down. So they've got that weapon added now on offense. All
right. Well, that's the Bears. So we'll TBD with them. How are you feeling about the Packers? I mean, I think there's a lot of anticipation for this weekend after a couple preseason looks at Jordan Love. But also, is there any update on Watson and Dobbs of whether or not they're going to play?
Dobbs came out and was limited in practice yesterday. So Romeo Dobbs is Jordan Love's main go-to guy through practice and preseason games, his best receiver, most reliable receiver. And just about 2 weeks ago, just before the final preseason game against the Seahawks, they sat him, and we found out it was a hamstring. So he was able to get on the field limited yesterday, but we were shocked when we came in on Wednesday. Now Christian Watson, his other top receiver, the two guys from last year that they're really kind of build the team on, he's dealing with a hamstring. I doubt if he'll be able to play. The first thought I had for some reason was kind of a flashback to a game that the Packers had when LaFleur had taken over, and Aaron Rodgers was short on receivers. So they used Aaron Jones and their other running back, Jamal Williams, as some receivers, and they scored touchdowns and had some big plays. So maybe he'll use Aaron Jones, a lot. The other thing is that we've talked about in the locker room this week is the rivalry. And I understand there's a lot of 22, 23-year-olds that, like I said to you, hey, how about that Alabama-LSU rivalry? You and I can't really, relate to that. We don't live down there. But I thought there's got to be something to it. Now, one thing about it is Justin Fields, the Bears quarterback, is actually pretty close friends with the Packers' new quarterback, Jordan Love. And we asked Jordan Love about that.
Yeah, no, me and Justin, we got the same agent, so we do a good amount of things just with our agent and with our agency getting together. But no, I haven't talked to him at all this week. Probably talked to him, after the game or maybe before. Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's always exciting to open the season, get the first game on rolling. But for an NFC opponent, rivalry game, it'll be very exciting playing there in their stadium. So I'm sure it'll be a packed house. Everybody will be excited for week one and ready to put on a show.
Oh, the plot thickens.
Yeah. You know, a lot of guys have been asking the other players in the Packers locker room, it's Jordan Love. Is he going to get nervous, on Sunday? And they go, no. I mean, all through training camp, Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas are two defensive backs, veterans. They were trash talking Jordan every day, trying to see if they can get under his skin. And he doesn't rattle. He seems pretty calm and cool. So they've got that on their favor. And, you played that clip coming out of the break of that famous play from a couple years ago. Aaron Rodgers scores a touchdown. And then, he said, not only the men, but the women were flipping him off there in the south end zone. And he started with that, I own you. What are you doing? I own you. And it's true. Matt LaFleur's never lost to the Bears, yet he's 8-0 against them. So I went to Darnell Savage Jr., who's their safety now. He's taken over the back end. And I said, it's got to be, even if you've never been to Chicago or you're not familiar with the Bears-Packers rivalry, with this really young Packers team, you've got to pick up on on game day, right? And here's what I said to him.
On game day, when you walk into that stadium, aren't there signs from the way
yeah.
carried? Then it kicks and you say, oh.
Yeah, you feel it. I mean, and it's not even necessarily when you walk into the stadium. It's driving to the stadium. It's in the bus, and you see all the people tailgating, that kind of thing. It's a good feeling, though, honestly. It's kind of like a us against the world kind of feeling, And I feel it feels good because it kind of brings us closer together because we know we all we got. We in this big stadium by ourselves, essentially. Obviously, Packer fans travel very well. We hope to hear some Go Pack Go chants on Sunday. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things, man. It's a special thing. This Bears Packers kind of thing. So
when you're down on the field and you get women in the stands flipping off Aaron Rodgers, that's an indication.
Yeah, absolutely. They like I said though, that's the thing about just these two organizations, just the fan base behind them is so deep and so rooted and so strong, it just goes back to time and time again, so it just makes it all the more better.
All right, Mike, we got 30 seconds left, so we got to wrap it up. But I'm very excited to see this game. We'll have to have you back next week to let us know on-field reporting, what you think, how the game went. But we're so happy to have you there in person. So thanks for joining us today, Mike.
Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Have a good weekend.
So you too, go Packers. When we come back, Alex Brusen will be here, who is the board president of We Got This, a gardening program that is pretty cool. Stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Who is the board president of We Got This, a gardening program that is pretty cool. Stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin. The board president of
Waukesha, home of Les Paul, our awesome farmers market, and The Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. A final report shows a Georgia grand jury recommended charges against a total of 39 people in the election tampering case that led to the indictments of former President Trump and 18 others. Legal contributor Jessica Levinson.
What we've seen is that the district attorney did not decide to charge all of the people and all of the crimes that were recommended by the grand jury here.
Among those not charged, Senator Lindsey Graham. A Category 5 Hurricane Lee swirling in the Atlantic could become one of the most powerful to ever form. Odyssey meteorologist Craig Allen.
Any effects for the United States would not be until the mid or latter portion of next week.
President Biden and other world leaders are at the G7 summit in India. So is CBS's Ed O'Keefe.
China's Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin both saying they won't be making the meetings. The G20 is an economic organization, so there's less conversation about war and peace and much more focus on issues of dollars and cents.
CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Your home for local news, weather, and sports across the airwaves and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Scaffolding is keeping a Milwaukee apartment building from collapsing, so city government has forced everyone out. The Department of Neighborhood Services has evacuated all 16 units of the Sohai Lofts at 27th and Wells due to serious structural concerns. Over a dozen residents have been displaced. There are problems with exterior walkways, rusty scaffolding, falling stairs, and a non-functioning elevator. The big gig grounds are set to host some little gigs. Starting today, a family and pet-friendly temporary beer garden is scheduled to open at Milwaukee's Summerfest grounds. The garden will be located in the Northwestern Mutual Community Park and will be operational on select Fridays and Saturdays in September. There will be free parking, live acoustic music, and a diverse menu of beer and snacks. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Experience Nightlight September 8th and 9th from 5 until 10:30 p.m. Presented by Joy Engine. The dazzling spectacle is an immersive 4D light festival taking place in Milwaukee's historic Mitchell Street neighborhood. Digital animations, dance, music, art, and fashion combine to create a visual, family-friendly sensory experience outside of 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. The event is family-friendly and free to the public. Don't miss this iconic event. Nightlight, where art comes to life. Information at joyengine.org.
Wisconsin traditions have been built for years around the Badgers, game day, and the mascot. But lead miners are the original Badgers in the state, not the animal or the mascot. It was the 1820s, and the miners often didn't have shelter in the winters, so they lived like Badgers by digging tunnels into the hillsides to stay warm and sleep where they worked. It led to the reason why today you really can't think of Wisconsin without thinking Badgers. For Civic Media, I'm Terry Barr.
US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can
who's a veteran journalist and editorial columnist over at Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. And we were talking about his article from last month, talking about how leaders in Milwaukee should probably listen to teenagers and listen to kids as far as some of their solutions to the problems that plague them. And one of the things he listed was programming, things that keep kids busy, mentors, things like, and so one of the programs he mentioned is called We Got This, which is a gardening program that's been around for about 10 years in Milwaukee. And we just so happened that was not planned when he mentioned it when he was on the show, but we had already scheduled the president of the board of We Got This, Alex Bruzan, to be on the show. And here he is. Alex, nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you guys. Good timing.
Good timing, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
so I think I had learned about you guys because I think earlier, like last month, maybe it was CBS 58 did a piece on you guys. And so because you're the expert, so tell us more about what We Got This is.
Yeah, sure. So We Got This was started about, like you said, about 10, 12 years ago by a man named Andre Lee Ellis. And he's famous in Milwaukee, a great community activist. And really what happened was, and a little bit of a backstory about my wife and I, we live around the corner from the We Got This garden.
Okay.
And so one night, it was like a Thursday night, I want to say about 5 o'clock, we heard gunshots kind of back behind the house. Andre at the time had been living just a few houses down and heard the gunshots. And a young man lost his life that night, right around dinner time. And, that's pretty normal for our neighborhood. That happened. In fact, same thing happened literally last night, about 9:30. My wife and I were brushing our teeth, and same thing happened. That guy, he was a 17-year-old kid. He's gonna make it. But gun violence it's a real thing. Over by us, it happens a lot. And so Andre knew that, and he said, we got to do something about it. And our zip code 53206 has 800 vacant lots currently in it.
Wow.
And so one of those vacant lots is what is now the We Got This community garden. And so he started that garden program again, like I said, about 12 years ago. And just like any organization, there's a start, but everything kind of has a rolling start. And so we call it 12 years ago. But essentially he built out that garden space and had kids from the neighborhood kind of just walking by and asking to help. And he had the great idea, well, why don't we pay him? And so, like I said, we're in our 12th season of paying kids to work in the neighborhood, essentially. So Saturdays in the summertime, this past summer, had 12 Saturdays where kids could come out. They learned how to garden. They learned how to just kind of take care of the space. All of the plants and most of the building material was donated through a couple other organizations in the area. And so those kids planted, hundreds of plants that were donated.
Wow.
They maintained all of those plants. And then now towards the end of the summer, they harvest and then they take them home or give them to the neighborhood.
So I think that's a really important thing to highlight is the fact that, do you feel like part of the reason why this program, because part of the CBS 58 article was that it's so popular that there's actually not even enough work for all the kids who want to be part of it right now, right?
Yeah. So, I like having good problems. I don't have any issue with having good problems. We have a good problem. So the last Saturday of the summer, 106 kids showed up, which meant that, we gave out $2,000 to kids in the neighborhood, for working. We eclipsed 3,000 hours of service to the community with that group of people, kids, and even more with the adults. We don't really even count that. And 175 different kids had come out over the summer. So yeah, it's we've started to build out an additional space kind of down the street. This is super local geographic information, but we live on 8th Street, and on 9th Street was 3 or 4 contiguous lots that we have a lot of problems in our neighborhood with people dumping trash. And so frequently people would dump on those lots. And so when we started to realize we're running out of space here, we worked with the city to be able to manage those spaces. So we built planter boxes. There's a pumpkin patch, which I think is just really cool.
Nice.
A pumpkin patch in the inner city, a bunch of sunflowers, and we tried out corn this year. So there's a couple rows of corn over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And did that change of just activating the space? Did the community kind of figure it out? Like, oh, we can't dump garbage in here anymore?
Yeah. Well, there's 800 vacant lots. There's a lot of places that you could dump trash. And so this is now just one less space. I'm sure it gets dumped somewhere else, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, nobody wants to dump their garbage at a garden. Why would nobody wants to?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so with that though, so there's so many kids who want to be involved, and is it kind of just, there's not official enrollment? It's kind of, if you show up, there's work for you to do.
Yeah, we didn't turn anybody away this year. And so, we had kids 8, 9, 10, all the way up through 18, a couple of kids that just graduated high school. And no, I mean, I don't know about you, Kristen, but like a young person that wants to show up and work on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm fine with that. We can figure out, can figure out whatever else we need to do, raise the funds, or by the way, we got this mke.com. I just want to make sure I plug that if you're a listener and you want to
Absolutely.
donate. But yeah, like that's the easy part. I mean, I've lived in the inner city for the last 17 years, and I believe that there's a stigma around our neighborhood and neighborhoods like ours that people don't want to work. And I just have found that to be entirely not true. I mean, kids are literally getting up early on a Saturday, on a day that they could sleep in, to work. And we work, we don't just sit around and hold hands and play games. They're digging holes, we're planting trees, we're tilling up stuff, we're carrying heavy things, we're mowing neighbors' lawns. We're doing all of that kind of yard maintenance type stuff. And they're excited, and they keep coming.
And so I think that's such an important thing to point out, though, is that the fact that I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, a key part of this and the key part of the success is that you are paying them, and that it's not just a volunteer program, that it's like, I would imagine it keeps them coming back, because if it's kids who they're certainly not necessarily getting allowance money. And so there's a work ethic, there's a return on my time, there's a return, there's a work, all that gets built into it. Cause I think sometimes you'd think, well, this is gardening, this is supposed to be volunteer hours, but it probably, I would imagine, is a big part of it is the fact that they walk away after 4 hours with $20.
Yeah, Kristen, I had a neighbor growing up named Mrs. Gallagher, and she was an old lady that couldn't cut her grass. She had a couple of knee replacements, and so she couldn't cut her grass, right? And so I knew when I was 12, okay, I can go over to Mrs. Gallagher's and I can cut her grass, and she's going to hand me $10. And so like that was my first job. That was the first thing that I did. And so, I mean, yeah, like we opened the garden up last weekend and we had 35 kids show up just to volunteer. But there is something really valuable about putting dollars into a kid's hand, and then they get to decide what they do with it. Whether it's go to the corner store right after and buy a bag of chips, which actually surprisingly doesn't happen very often. A lot of the times they say like, I'm saving up for clothes for school, or there's a pair of shoes that I want to buy. And it's nothing ridiculous. It's like, I got a $40 pair of shoes I want to buy for the first day of school. Like, okay, well, that's great. And now you have an opportunity to do that. And nobody just handed it to you. Cause like I said, I mean, those kids, they work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there something specific with gardening that you think is it because of, I've talked about this in the show for a month. This is my first year gardening as a homeowner.
Okay.
So I've had, my mom has been teaching me the craft, and it does it's meditative, but it also is when you're getting over there and you're weeding and it's hard work. And so you think there's something specific to the work of gardening that is also key to why the kids enjoy it. This has got to work that they get out of their own head. Is there something therapeutic about it?
Yeah, it's that. But then I worked in schools for a long time. And I know, a couple of things, like you have to keep kids busy in order for all hell not to break loose. So you have to keep them busy. But that being said, like you have to give kids something that they can do that's accessible. Like I taught math for forever. And if you give a kid a ridiculously hard math problem, they're going to sit there and then they're going to find a way to do something that they shouldn't do. But gardening has access points from, what you're finding out, somebody has no experience up to, the 75-year-old lady that comes and volunteers who has 50 years of experience.
Yeah.
And so, it's easily accessible for a kid. Everybody can carry a watering can. Everybody can say, that's a weed, that's a strawberry plant. Those are the types of things that make it easy. But then, there's a lot of other, really positive aspects to gardening. You see the literal fruits of your labor, or the vegetables of your labor. You see that like right away. Like you can plant flowers on the first Saturday in June, and then you can pick those flowers in August and then give them to your mom. So you have like this connection to the space. I don't have the statistic in front of me, and I wish I did, but I think the home ownership rate in our zip code is like 33%. It's about that. And so there's a real lack of ownership in our neighborhood. And those kids own that space. They take care of that space. And so when you can give a young person this idea that, ownership is well within the possibilities for you, and in fact, here's a space that you own and manage, that does a lot to a kid, and they thrive off of that.
Absolutely. We're talking to Alex Bruzan, who is the board president of We Got This, which is a program in Milwaukee dedicated to having young people work in a community garden. And so I guess that's going back. So is it mostly vegetables, or like what? So I heard sunflowers, I heard corn, I heard strawberries. So what is the range of things being grown?
Yeah, and my wife is the gardening. I actually can't tell the difference between weeds and strawberries, but many of the 9-year-olds can. But we've got some great partnerships already. There's in Waukesha, the city of Waukesha, there's a Walmart that's kind of partnered with us, and they gave us 2 literal giant. I'm holding my hands up. Listeners can't see, but I don't know, 2x4x3 boxes of seeds. And so we literally can plant, we had everything. So like I said, pumpkins, a lot of vegetables, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of cucumbers, a lot of things that are easy to grow, but then several boxes that are dedicated to flowers that, you can cut. And, there's one of the reasons behind that too is, 53206, the median household income is $24,000 a year. And it's really hard to live on $2,000. And so if you can produce anything that's going to create margin, that matters. And any little bit that you can do. So if a kid walks home with, the equivalent of a grocery bag full of vegetables, like that matters. That can and does make a difference.
So I guess kind of going back to the conversation we had with James earlier this week, as someone who sounds like has spent your career working with youth and working with kids and working in the inner city, what do you think that our officials and our leaders should be listening and actually taking into account from what you hear from young people?
Yeah, I think I'm big into design thinking. So we don't need, I mean, in the long scope or in the 5-10 year plan, we got this. We'd love to have many other gardens because I think that model is repeatable and it's fairly efficient financially. But I think it's the themes that you're going to hear from the kids. They want purpose. They want pride. They want that sense of ownership. They want a place where they can go and feel like they're a part of something. We had spaces in my neighborhood growing up. My wife's from Middleton, Wisconsin. I'm from a town called Lake in the Hills. We had places that we could go, and those places don't exist in my neighborhood. They just don't. And so we need things like that. It doesn't need to be 30 We Got This gardens. That would be great, but we need, other places where a kid can go, where they can feel like they belong, where they can get a sense of purpose, a sense of pride, learn some skills, learn how to resolve conflicts. That was huge. As you start to get up close to 100 kids, you're going to have conflict, and you need some safe spaces to learn how to manage conflict.
All right. Well, tell everyone where they can find more information, but more importantly, donate.
Yeah, sure. Two things. You can go to WeGotThisMKE.com or Facebook. We Got This MKE. Also, my wife and I do a podcast. It's called the 53206 Cast, where we kind of like talk about all things inner city, but specifically about We Got This. Several episodes are just about that. So 53206 Cast, and get on Spotify and get it on wherever you get your podcast.
Perfect. We will link all of that to our show notes today. Alex Bruzin, so nice to meet you.
Yeah,
have a great weekend. And this is awesome. It's such a great program. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it.
All right. We have one more segment, so stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Experience Nightlight, September 8th and 9th from 5 until 10:30 p.m. Presented by Joy Engine. The dazzling spectacle is an immersive 4D light festival taking place in Milwaukee's historic Mitchell Street neighborhood. Digital animations, dance, music, art, and fashion combine to create a visual, family-friendly sensory experience outside of 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. The event is family-friendly and free to the public. Don't miss this iconic event. Nightlight, where art comes to life. Information at joyengine.org.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Overcast this afternoon with a high of 69. Winds out of the north 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows level off around 49 tonight, mainly clear. Daytime highs approaching 72 tomorrow. Bright sunshine expected. Mid-70s Sunday, much cooler Monday with highs in the upper.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. He is Greg Bach. And Greg Bach, it's been so fun to have you on the board with me for the last 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Jane will be back on Monday, but then you will be back on the board as of September 25th when Jane takes over for me as I take care of baby. So how are you feeling? What have you learned over the last 2.5 weeks?
I have learned to being dead serious. Like when I sit, if you're watching the live stream, you can see where I'm sitting. Sit at the board, have almost like a 180 visual of everything I'm doing, and keep calm the entire time. So like
All right.
on my left, there's the phone line. In front of me, I got you. I got the board. I got music, callers. On my right, I got text messages, and making sure that, and always keeping my eye on the clock.
Very important.
And
that
so,
clock.
so like the first couple of days, there were days where we had like big engagement, and I'm like, hey, over here, oh my God. And it's just like, and then I'm like, that's not going to do well. Relax, have fun. I got you next to me, so this is great.
It is great.
We're just being the ball. Just be the ball, man.
Be water, as Bruce Lee used to say.
Oh, even better. Be
Even
water.
better. Be water.
Hydrate
Well,
people.
I am bummed. So I'm out of town this weekend. I'm going, like I said, going up to Wisconsin Rapids. But we've been playing ads for this. I've heard on the commercials, but this sounds awesome. So Joy Engine is doing Milwaukee's first ever outdoor immersive arts and light festival experience. And so it's tonight from 5 until 10:30. It's also tomorrow from 5 until 10:30 on 7th and Historic Mitchell Street in Milwaukee. And it's basically like, it sounds like it's like 4D projection mapping. I don't even know what 4D is, but it's like mapping technology to Milwaukee's like the historic. So if you haven't been in Milwaukee, but like the historic Mitchell Street neighborhood is, I think there was like a big shopping neighborhood, and it's beautiful down there. But it's a multi-story building at 710 West Historic Mitchell Street, home of Mitchell Street Arts. And so that's going to serve as the backdrop for the show. But it sounds, I'm going to post more of this to our show notes today, but it's basically like performances and celebrating like technology and music. And it sounds really cool. And the lineups of the different artists sounds awesome. So I would say if you are in the Milwaukee area this weekend, check it out either tonight or tomorrow night. I know you're going to be busy as well because you have shows.
I do have shows this weekend. And I think they also made sure to say in the commercial that it's family friendly.
Yes.
Everyone can go. So I'm actually going to suggest it to my friends and my niece and nephew to go.
So yeah, because there's some of the activities include, there's a life-sized light bright, which sounds awesome.
Wait, what time is this happening? I'm going.
So basically like, and I'm seeing some of the pictures, and like Light Bright was just a little panel when you had it as a kid, but at least the pictures they have, like it is massive. It is a big board that you can go create designs on.
So
and
cool.
Then PNC Bank has a kids area that's going to be like multilingual learning. And there's like a variety of different hands-on activities over there. And then in Mitchell Street Arts, you're going to be able to go into the building and explore their headquarters. And there's going to be art activities and tours of the space. So this sounds like, I'm really sad that I'm missing this. And so I hope people go and let me know how it is.
Hopefully, you know what? They'll do it next year, and you can hold the hand of your little kid, and they can run around. And
will they be running around? I guess in a
year,
year they start walking.
They should.
Hopefully.
They usually, I mean, most kids that I know are walking around 8-9 months.
Really?
I think so.
Is it that early?
I thought so.
They're like crawling at 8-9 months. I have no idea when the milestones are supposed to be.
Please direct all text messages to Luke Mather at Civic Media.
Luke definitely knows the child development stages. If there's anyone at this company that knows it, it's totally Luke.
But I think, no, because I remember my niece Molly walking and talking at almost at the same time. She was talking. She started talking real young, and then you shut her up. But like, yeah. So I remember her like starting to say words before a year, like little words, tiny words. But she was walking. I
actually had a funny where our niece, Maddie, who's 6 years old, I guess her feedback from her teacher in her first week of school was to her mom said, boy, she can talk a lot. And I took offense to that because my sister-in-law put that in our family text, and she said that was the feedback. And I immediately shot back as someone who was also told I talk too much in class. I was like, well, for what it's worth, I also was given that feedback as a child, and now I get paid to talk for a living. So maybe it's not such a bad thing. Let her talk.
And that was a 45-second answer right there. It's really weird off the topic. Speaking of like reports, I was going through my car and just found a bag of not recyclables, but shreddables. And in those shreddables, all my high school report cards.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how it just didn't happen, but I looked at it. I'm like, should I keep them? And then I saw like the D in science. I'm like, nope, they're gone. They're gone.
Oh, you got a D in science?
I wasn't a good student in the first 2 years of my high school career.
I feel like there's a lot to dig into there with less than 3 minutes left for the show.
Yeah.
But was it because you didn't apply yourself or because you didn't care? Like, what do you, looking back at it?
I cared. I just didn't. I didn't apply myself correctly. I didn't
Interesting.
know. And to this, I mean, I think very much education is a custom made thing. You got to figure out how you learn, and then you learn. I grew up, and we still do grow up in the time of take information in, memorize it, regurgitate it, take it, memorize it, regurgitate. That's not how everybody learns. So it was hard for me to do that. So, don't have learning disabilities or anything like no dyslexia or anything like that, but it is difficult for me to like read technical information and take the information in.
It's always interesting to like aptitude for like math and science versus language and social studies. I was certainly a language and social studies kid, but I feel like, is that just the missing piece sometimes for kids? It's that you maybe have a stronger inclination for one or the other, but if it's like just having the right teacher who helps you learn how to do the other thing, like how much of like exactly what you said, it's like, it's not that I can't learn this. It's just, I'm not like absorbing it in the way that you want me to.
I remember, honestly, I'll dig into this and we can talk about it further, but I feel like I remember seeing an article saying, stop saying you're bad at math. Because people say that all the time, like, I'm bad at math. Well, you're not. You just didn't learn correctly how to do math for you. And so, I'd love to. I could talk about that and find a guest and do the whole, like, I love that topic. So.
All right, add it to the repository of future topics.
Yep.
Greg Bach. All right, well, Greg, this has been so fun doing this show with you for 2.5 weeks. We're so excited to have Jane back on Monday. I will not be here Monday. Joe Zepecki is filling in, so always a joy to have Joe's insight. Maybe he will have an impeachment update, and I'm sure Joe will have lots of opinions on that. But thank you to Alex Bruzan. Thank you to Professor Schaefer. Thank you to Luke Mathers. Thank you, Greg Bach. Thank you to everyone who texted in, called in. It was a great show. Great Friday.
It was very fun. Very popping, effervescent.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
This has been As Goes Wisconsin.